The Holy Spirit has just used you to elect Bishop Bullock back for another term. I don't know whether I should say congratulations, since it was the work of the Spirit, or simply thanks be to God. I think I'll settle for the latter. It's really a delight, again, to stand here in front of you. This morning, as I was about to sit down, Pastor Jim White came over and said, "How does it feel to be a former seminary teacher and see some of your students here?" And I said to him, "It makes me very proud. I think there are 4 of my former students here. Pastor Julius Carroll is one of those, who's now at the seminary. I saw yesterday Pastor Steve Gerhard, and of course Rafael Malpica Padilla is one of my former students, as is our chaplain, Pastor Reggie Hansen. It's an honor to see you all again. So we're going to talk about dismissed by the word. The word dismissed means many things, so in light of where we're going, let me just say dismissed by the word is a relief. Dismissed by the word is a challenge because it's a call to be whose we are. And then I want to look at some length at how many commandments of the word do we really have to live by. Back in February, I think it was, Janine and I had a very, very interesting evening giving a presentation at a Mennonite church not far from Lancaster, Pennsylvania, on the subject of fair trade. We were asked to talk in particular about fair trade in the light of a Pakistani group of artisans who tie and knot rugs, the so-called Persian rugs. We're intimately connected with that group and know the people who do the knotting and the shearing and everything else quite well. And we're pleased to make that presentation. But every time it was my turn, and not Janine's, to stand up in front of this group, I was struck by the fact that there was this peculiar poster over the doorway. And it bothered me every time I got up, and I couldn't figure out why it was bothering me so much. And finally, when it was all over and we were leaving, we were being dismissed, essentially, I realized what it meant. The poster said, "So what?" And I thought, yeah, we do it a little more liturgically in the Lutheran Church. We say, "Go in peace, serve the Lord." Or "Go in peace, serve the poor." It's a go in peace. And then what do we do with that peace we've just received? So what? It certainly made a punch. Maybe even more of one than serve the Lord at that moment, because it was such a surprise. Go in peace, serve the Lord. That peace is the one that we talk about on the basis of Paul's writings, the peace of God that passes all understanding. That is, the peace that's beyond our own reason and strength to comprehend, the peace that the Apostle Paul elsewhere calls unsearchable, inscrutable peace. We go in that peace to be whose we are. My job is to be a kid, Aidan said. Our job is to be God's kids. And what does that mean? It means faith is life in the Spirit. It was very moving to hear the various persons who were to become deans, to one at a time, to hear those verses from Hebrews. By faith, by faith, by faith. Went through the whole Bible. Faith as life in the Spirit is a critical issue for the Apostle Paul. He describes it as the obedience of faith in Romans. the obedience in acknowledging the gospel of Christ, as they all said, yes. It's faith active in love in Galatians. It's the work of faith in Galatians 5. Faith is a call to be whose we are. Now, we talked about this yesterday. What does it mean to say we are God's children? What do we say, first of all, about our parent, who God is? And I tried to make the point that if we look at the Holy Scriptures, and actually yesterday we covered from Genesis through John. It was quite a stretch. What does all that say about who the God is who adopted us? And even on the basis of those I am passages that appear everywhere, where God actually tells us who God is, we come up with this stunning statement that I am the Lord who listens to the cries of the oppressed. I am the God who came to save the world from sin. I am. But what does it mean to belong to God? This time, we're going to get a running start. We'll just start with Exodus instead of Genesis, but we'll go through James. Is that okay? Well, let's look at the first part of this parenting that God does. How does God set the parameters in order to indicate to us how we live by faith, how we live out whose we are? Well, the first time that really occurs is in the book of Exodus. In the 20th chapter, after the people have been delivered from the land of Egypt, have come through the wilderness partway, and have come back to Mount Sinai, God announces, as I said yesterday, from the mountaintop to all the people, however many there are. They actually, I think, are a matter of looking at life as the child of God, Israel, in terms of 5 different categories. I'm not sure it has so much to do with 10 or 11 or 12, but with 5 pairs. I've got 5 fingers on each hand. And oh golly, sometimes I do have trouble remembering the 10. And what's the sequence? But if you look at the 10 Commandments as 5 pairs, you can come up with this. The person of God is the first pair. It has to do with God's uniqueness and God's exclusiveness. You can't make an idol and you can't worship any other gods. The second pair has to do with the things that belong to God, God's name and God's Sabbath.